Well, Chairman, I have to confess I'm quite bemused about the whole thing, and I just want to ask a few questions. I know ostensibly I'm asking about cost, but I think cost is pretty irrelevant at this stage. What I'd like to understand is the objective of this exercise, is it to basically do necessary repairs to the UNESCO heritage building, or is it actually to provide better accommodation and offices for the Lords and the Commons? What is the actual objective of this operation?
So under the
you think?
So under the 2019 Act, there are areas to which the programme has to have regard to. So that includes visitor services, education services, security, and a host of others. What the Act didn't do was establish the priority areas of work. And when we had the reset in 2022, we made sure the commissions at that time, then the client board, confirmed what those priority areas were, and that was taken through the Houses in 2022, and it was agreed to be fire safety, mechanical and electrical services, asbestos and building fabric. They are the core areas of work to which this programme has been designed around. But as I say, there are a number of areas to which we have to have regard to, and the outcome level does take regard to. So it is there to deliver. The overarching requirement under the Act is to restore the palace as a whole.
But so I listened in horror, and I built the stadium at Southampton. It's not as big a project as this, but we built it on budget and on time. And the only way we did that was we identified what the design was, what we wanted, and what it was going to cost. And the other thing we did was, which you've got to do in this situation, is you've got to bolt down your downstream risk from variations and changing your mind on the existing plan. So what you need to start with is you need to start, in my opinion, with what do you want to achieve? And then you should be able to relatively straightforwardly cost it. And I listen in horror, you talk about there's boards everywhere. That's a disaster. That means people change their minds. It means you've got to consult. It means you've got to discuss things with people. So I'm confused. I actually think there's a huge danger here that if we don't get a small, lightweight team of people with construction experience, I mean, I don't see many people, and again, I wanted to understand, I'm one of the new MPs, and this other than being on this committee, I wouldn't have had much.
I think we will come on to.
But Geoffrey, I just want to understand this. So the IAAP, are they made up of people with construction experience? Because there doesn't seem to be much construction experience on the two guiding boards.
So the Independent Advice and Assurance Panel was made up of people with construction experience. Yes, absolutely. And there are external members of the programme board who are specifically chosen for their major programme experience too.
So, and how much are you factoring in AI, which is in all likelihood going to reduce the number of staff that MPs need, not increase them? So there's likely to be less demand for offices, less demand on accommodation, more opportunity to use technology. So is that being factored into the equation?
It is factored into the opportunities work that Russ's team will start to pursue. I would just add that under the Act we have a statutory duty to consult members, and under the Act all members of both houses have to decide on this programme. They have to decide on the cost of proposals.
But I'm with Anne on this. We need to know what we're deciding on, and I don't think anybody's quite clear on that. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done before this can really be effectively sold to both the MPs and the members of the House of Lords, which assume they've got to agree as well. But I mean, in terms of us understanding, I'm a new boy. I was elected in 24. I haven't been on the tour. I'm not sure the tour's been particularly well publicised as far as I'm concerned. That may be my deficiency rather than your deficiency. But I do think, but what are you going to do with a tour? Tell people what you might do rather than what you are going to do. That's a question. And I know we're under time pressure. Don't forget, there's no point, Russ, in costing stuff now. We've just seen oil prices doubling. We've seen construction costs going through the roof over the last 5 to 10 years. There's little point in trying to cost something now that you're not rebuilding until 2032. What you need to do is work out what you're going to do, what you want, and then when you're going to build it, cost it, and then lock down all the variables that are going to cost you a lot more and waste taxpayers' money.
If I could just respond on the process point. So the process that you've outlined of being very clear on the requirements and then developing a solution against it, in our view, that is what happened in 2022, 2023. we've been given a very clear set of requirements. We've then worked to develop a scheme against a very clear set of requirements, and effectively we're proposing cost and schedule envelopes on that basis. Clearly the big outstanding decision is which variant of decant Parliament wants to choose, and that is the big unresolved issue that we need to sort of firmly lock down the programme. On your kind of point about costs and risks looking a long time into the future, that is exactly why we've got very wide ranges of cost and why we've got very significant elements of contingency in the numbers. So full decant at the bottom end of the range, 30% contingency, top end of the range, 80% contingency. On EMI Plus, that rises to 130% contingency at the top end of the range. So that would absolutely reflect the sorts of uncertainties that you've just outlined.
Well, anyway, I'm not going to go on, but the only other question I had was, in terms of RAC and asbestosis, how much? I mean, that's obviously, if it needs to be dealt with, that has to be dealt with, particularly RAC. So how much is that likely to cost us? I mean, that I see as a necessity purchase rather than as a sort of an arbitrary purchase.
So there are. RAC is not particularly extensive in the Palace. It tends to be in the sort of more 1970s additions. It's something that we feel we've got a good handle on through the survey work, and it's absolutely something that we are planning to address. Similarly, asbestos, we've done some sampling surveys to try and get a handle on how much asbestos exists. Again, as Charlotte mentioned, one of the big priority areas for the programme is dealing with asbestos in the Palace, and that's absolutely built into the programme.
Can I just lastly, Chairman, understand, on your £1.5 million a week that you're spending on, I think you called it
repair and maintain.
Yeah. Does that include these wretched gates and everything else that have gone in? Is that all included, or is that on top?
It includes the works to the Palace itself. Yes, so
the gates you put on the outside to. I mean, who signed all that off?
So the accountable officers in the houses are the Clerk of the House and the Clerk of the Parliament. So they are the accountable officers and the corporate officers.
But that must have cost lots of tens of millions to do all these wretched gates that hold me up coming out of Parliament now. I mean, who actually signed off on
4 million to be precise.
Sorry?
4 million.
I know, Geoffrey, but if you take 1.5 million a week by the sort of crude maths that I employ, that's £75 million. What did it cost, Geoffrey? 46 million. So there's a large slug of it. That's included.
The figure 1.5 million is a live figure and changes depending on the portfolio of works undertaken by the
Parliamentary estate. It includes the wretched gates to keep the public out.
As far as I understand, it includes all works of the Palace, which we would include.
All of that, I'm afraid, is arbitrary spend. It's not necessary, is it?
Those particular works came under the security programme that was designed to make sure that members of both houses can continue to be safe and secure operating on this site.
When I talk to both members of both houses, they tell me nobody was consulted about it. So this committee made the decision to do it. But I mean, most MPs had no idea, and most of the Lords had no idea it was happening.
So business cases are obviously, Treasury compliant business cases are produced for all parliamentary programmes and would include this one, Restoration Renewal. The one you're talking about is the security programme. That went through the normal business case process. It was approved by the accounting officers and the corporate officers, so the two clerks, depending in which part of the building it was on. And as part of that, those projects have engagement with the domestic committees, so the administration committee and the finance committee as normal. Restoration Renewal has a separate governance structure, but I think, Chair, you probably want to cover that in different questions.
It's in that 1.5 million a week, you're saying?
As far as I understand it, those costs are included in those £1.5 million a week.
Point of clarification, the gates cost 64 million. I got a parliamentary answer to that effect.
Oh.
And Rupert, just to be absolutely clear, this committee has nothing to do with the individual decisions on what is to be done with Parliament, least of all those gates. That would have been approved, as Charlotte has explained, through that process.
I think the whole lot of them are a bunch of pork barreling clowns, and I find it incredible.